Yo, stop what you are doing right now. Stop scrolling, stop cooking, stop pretending to work. Because what you just watched is not a drill. That is Caitlin Clark, the most important player in women's basketball. The woman who single-handedly made an entire league relevant to people who didn't even know what a paint touch was 2 years ago. That is Caitlin Clark going off on her own coaching staff in the middle of a game she was actively winning for them. I'm Dre Fiver. This is Street Hoops. And if you have not subscribed yet, I genuinely do not know what you are waiting for. Because we cover the drama that other channels are scared to touch. Hit that subscribe button right now, and let's get into this, because I have been waiting all morning to unpack this situation, and I have a lot of feelings. Let me set the table for people who might be coming in cold, because context is everything, and I refuse to let the Stephanie White apologists rewrite history before we even get started. The Indiana Fever hosted the Seattle Storm. On paper, this is not a competitive matchup. Seattle is a roster of grinders and role players. Good people, hard-working people. But let's be honest with each other. Not a team with a single player who scares you in a vacuum. No superstar. Arguably no star at all. This is the kind of game where a team with Caitlin Clark should be scheduling their post-game dinner reservation by the third quarter. And for one half of basketball, that is exactly what was happening. Indiana was plus 11 in the first half. Plus 11, Caitlin Clark was running the show, making reads, pushing pace, doing the things that made casual sports fans download a WNBA app for the first time in their lives. Everything was clicking. The offense had rhythm. The ball had energy. You could feel it through the screen. Then halftime happened, and whatever was said in that locker room, whatever adjustments Stephanie White decided to make, it flipped the entire game on its head. The second half, Indiana got outscored, not just in one quarter, in both the second and the fourth quarters. Let me repeat that for the people in the back. The Fever got outscored by Seattle, a team with zero superstars and arguably no stars. In the second and fourth quarters of a game, they were dominating at halftime. And what did those two quarters have in common? Caitlin Clark was either parked on the bench or operating inside a restricted pass-first wait-for-the-fourth touch system that fundamentally neuters what makes her the most dangerous offensive weapon women's basketball has ever produced. The math is not complicated. When she plays her game, Indiana wins, and it's not close. When the coaching staff tightens the leash, Seattle, a team of character actors playing above their billing, claws all the way back into a game they had no business being in. Now here is where my opinion comes in hard, and I do not apologize for it one single bit. What Stephanie White is trying to run is not a bad system in a vacuum. 4 passes minimum before a shot, ball movement, everybody touches it, disciplined spacing, that is textbook basketball. That is the philosophy she built her reputation on in Connecticut. And it works when you have a veteran roster of disciplined scorers who all understand their roles and nobody is dramatically better than everyone else on the floor. That system works for the 2004 Detroit Pistons. It works for a college program built on culture and buy-in over 3 or 4 years. I respect the philosophy. I understand the philosophy. But here is what Stephanie White needs to understand right now today in the year we are currently living in. That philosophy does not work when one of your players is Caitlin Clark. And I want to be careful here, because I am not throwing Kelsey Mitchell under the bus. I love Kelsey Mitchell. She is a bucket getter. She can fill it up on any given night, and she has proven herself as one of the more reliable scorers in this league for years now. But Kelsey Mitchell's game is what it is. When the ball touches her hands, she is looking to score. That is not a criticism. That is her identity as a basketball player, and it has served her well. But what it means in practical terms inside Stephanie White's system is this. When Caitlin Clark passes the ball away to initiate the 4-pass sequence, she is not getting it back. The ball goes to Mitchell, Mitchell scores, or the possession dies. And suddenly, the most gifted playmaker and facilitator in women's basketball history is standing on the perimeter watching other people make decisions she would have made better. That is a crime. That is basketball malpractice. And Caitlin Clark, who has played enough basketball to know exactly what is happening in real time, is visibly, publicly, on camera losing her patience with it. Because here is the thing about what we watched on that sideline. That confrontation, and let's call it what it is, that was a confrontation, not a casual strategic conversation. That was not spontaneous combustion. That was months of pressure finally finding a release valve. Caitlin Clark finished that game with 21 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 34 minutes. Do you understand what I am telling you right now? She was 1 missed rebound away from a triple-double in 34 minutes against a team Indiana should have put away by halftime. And she was still arguing with her coaches because even a performance like that was not enough to override a system philosophy that does not fit this roster. If she plays her normal 32 to 35 minutes, running her own offense, she is probably sitting on 30 points and 15 assists. Instead, she is sitting on the bench watching Seattle make a run and trying to explain to Stephanie White why what she sees on the floor does not match what the playbook says is supposed to happen. You can see it in her face. You can see the moment she goes from explanation mode to exasperation mode. She is done trying to convince them. She knows what works. The scoreboard knows what works. Apparently, the coaching staff is the last to get the memo. Let me talk about the Mutombo moment for a second because it tells you everything you need to know about where Caitlin Clark's head is right now. She blocks the Tasha Haide, and that alone is already a statement. And then she does the full Dikembe Mutombo finger wag. Not a little celebration, the whole production. And watch Heidi's reaction. She is smiling, she is almost laughing, because the competitive respect between these players is real and genuine, and there is no personal animosity there. But Caitlin is not celebrating a block. She is releasing something. That finger wag is directed at every frustration she has been carrying into that building, every benching in the fourth quarter, every time she passed the ball away and never saw it again, every film session where she nodded along with a system philosophy she knows is actively working against her strengths. That wag is a pressure valve opening. And if the Fever coaching staff is paying attention, they should be far more concerned about what that energy represents than they are about any strategic adjustment they think they are making. Now let me address the Stephanie White truthers directly, because I know exactly how this is going to go over the next few weeks. The Fever are about to go on a run. They have got expansion teams on the schedule. They have got rebuilding rosters, squads that are still figuring out their rotations, franchises that are in full tank mode, whether they admit it or not. Indiana should win those games. They will win those games. And the moment they put together a 5 or 6 game winning streak, the Stephanie White defenders are going to flood the comments with warm takes about how she has figured it out, how the system is clicking, how Caitlin and Stephanie have found their groove. And I need you to remember this video right here when that narrative starts building. Because winning against expansion teams tells you absolutely nothing about whether this philosophical problem has been solved. Nothing. That is like bragging about a diet after one good day. The test is not what happens against the bottom of the league. The test is what happens when you face the Liberty, when you face the Aces, when you face the Lynx, when you walk into an arena against a team with real depth, real defensive schemes built specifically to slow Caitlin Clark down, and real stars who can punish you on the other end if your offense stalls. That is when this internal tension either gets resolved or blows up in the most public way possible. Because here is the reality of what championship basketball looks like. The New York Liberty do not restrict Breanna Stewart. They do not tell her to wait for the fourth pass and stay in her lane. They let Stewart be Stewart, and they build everything around maximizing what she does best. The Las Vegas Aces did not handcuff A'ja Wilson inside a philosophy that diminished her impact. They said, here is the ball, here is the court. Go be the best player on the planet, and we will build our entire identity around supporting that. Championship organizations understand something that apparently still needs to be explained in Indianapolis. When you have a generational talent, your entire job as a coaching staff is to get out of that talent's way and make sure everyone around her is positioned to benefit from what she creates. You do not put Michael Jordan in a triangle offense and then complain when he stops deferring. You do not put Steph Curry in a half-court plot and pass system and wonder why the offense is stagnant. And you absolutely do not put Caitlin Clark, a player with better court vision than 95% of the people who have ever played this game at any level, in a system that requires her to pass away her most dangerous instincts and then wait politely for a ball that is never coming back. The attendance numbers are telling this story too, and the Fever front office needs to be paying very close attention to what those numbers are saying. Gainbridge Fieldhouse holds over 17,000 people. They drew under 15,000 for the Seattle game. That is nearly 3,000 empty seats for a home game featuring the most popular individual attraction in women's sports right now. Resellers who bought tickets expecting to flip them at a premium are sitting on $8 inventory that was supposed to be $60 and $70. $8. People who bet their money on Caitlin Clark being appointment television are losing that bet right now. And the reason is not that fans have lost interest in Caitlin Clark. The reason is that fans are smart. They can see what is happening. They are watching the most electric player in the league get managed into a version of herself that is less dynamic, less creative, less entertaining, and they are making an economic decision that reflects exactly what they see. Why would you pay $60 to watch Caitlin Clark stand in the corner waiting for a pass that is never coming when you can watch her on the league app for free? The product is Caitlin Clark being Caitlin Clark. The moment you dilute that product, the market responds accordingly. And right now, the market is responding very loudly. Here is what I find most fascinating and honestly most troubling about this whole situation. Caitlin Clark put up 21 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks in a game Indiana nearly gave away in the second half. She had a stat line that most players in this league would frame and hang on their wall. She did the Mutombo block. She was visibly the best player on the floor by a margin that is not even worth debating. And she is still frustrated. She is still arguing on the sideline because she knows, at a level of basketball intelligence that very few people in that building can match, that what she showed tonight was not even close to what she is capable of. She knows that the possessions that died, the leads that evaporated, the quarters that got away, all of that was preventable. Not because Seattle got better, because Indiana got conservative, because a system philosophy that does not match this roster's personnel was applied at the exact moments when it could do the most damage. And she cannot say any of that publicly without it becoming a media firestorm that consumes the entire season. So instead, she says it on the bench, on camera, in real time, and we are all watching it. I want to talk about what the fourth quarter of the previous game told us, because that tape does not lie either. Caitlin Clark went absolutely bonkers in that fourth quarter, running her own system. Not the 4 pass before a shot philosophy. Her system. The push the pace, make the read, trust your instincts, be the most unpredictable player on the floor system. And what happened? Indiana dominated. The offense had creativity. The offense had pace. It had the kind of spontaneous energy that defenses cannot prepare for in a film session because it does not run on a predetermined script. She goes bonkers and they win convincingly. So she comes into the Seattle game thinking she has the green light, thinking the coaching staff saw what she saw in that fourth quarter tape, thinking they understand now that her way produces results and their way produces blown leads against teams with no superstars. And instead, she gets resistance. She gets the system. She gets Stephanie White drawing up plays that are designed around ball movement principles that worked in a completely different context, with a completely different roster, against completely different competition. And that is when the bench conversation happens. That is when 21 points and 10 assists and a Mutombo block is still not enough to keep the frustration below the boiling point. The deeper issue here, the one that nobody in the Indiana organization wants to say out loud, is that this roster was not built to run Stephanie White's preferred system at an elite level. It was built around Caitlin Clark. Every personnel decision, every marketing decision, every ticket pricing decision was made with the understanding that Caitlin Clark is the engine, the identity, and the entire value proposition of this franchise right now. Aaliyah Boston is a quality player, but she is dealing with injury questions and has not consistently looked like herself. The bench is thin in a way that becomes very obvious the moment you take Clark off the floor for extended stretches. There is no safety net deep enough to cover for a system philosophy that voluntarily reduces her impact. When she is on the floor running her game, Indiana is a playoff team with legitimate aspirations. When the system overrides her instincts, Indiana is a team that nearly loses to Seattle at home. Those are not exaggerations. Those are the actual outcomes we watched play out in real time. So what does the Fever front office do with all of this? Because at some point, this is not just a coaching conversation anymore. This is a franchise identity crisis. You have the most valuable asset in your organization's history, visibly, publicly, on camera, at odds with your coaching philosophy. You have attendance numbers that are trending in the wrong direction. You have a soft schedule coming up that will temporarily paper over all of these problems and give everyone an excuse to pretend the issues have been resolved. And then you have a brutal stretch against elite competition waiting on the other side of that soft schedule that will expose everything that the wins over expansion teams allowed everybody to ignore. The Liberty are not going to be generous. The Aces are not going to be patient. The Lynx are not going to allow the game to slow down in ways that hide the philosophical tension at the heart of this Indiana roster. They are going to attack every weakness, exploit every rotation decision, and punish every possession where Caitlin Clark is not operating at the absolute peak of her abilities. And here is my honest, unfiltered, Dre Fiver take on all of it. Stephanie White is not a bad coach. I want to say that clearly. She is an accomplished coach with a legitimate track record and a real philosophy that has produced real results in real contexts. But right now, in this moment, with this roster, she is coaching defense on her own player. And that is the most expensive mistake a franchise can make when the player in question is a once-in-a-generation talent who has already proven she knows how to win. You do not get LeBron James and then ask him to run Kyle Korver's game. You do not get Steph Curry and then ask him to play through the post. And you do not get Caitlin Clark A player with a handle, a vision, a competitive fire, and a basketball IQ that belongs in any conversation about the best to ever do it, and then build a system around the idea that her instincts need to be managed rather than unleashed. That is not coaching, that is suppression. And the results on the scoreboard, in the attendance figures, and on that sideline footage are all telling you the same thing at the same time. The market, the fan base, and Caitlin Clark herself are all saying the same thing. Get out of her way. The Fever have a genuine choice to make before this season reaches the point of no return. They can continue down this path, hope the soft schedule generates enough wins to justify the status quo, and then watch this entire situation implode against the first elite team they face, with something real on the line. Or they can acknowledge what the tape has been screaming for weeks now. When Caitlin Clark plays her game with freedom and trust, Indiana is dangerous. When she does not, Indiana is beatable by teams that have no business beating them. There is no middle ground here. There is no version of this where the system and the star coexist peacefully over the long term. One of them has to win. And given that one of them is the most important player this franchise has ever had, given that one of them sells tickets and moves merchandise and gets people to care about women's basketball who never cared before, the answer seems pretty obvious to me. But hey, that is just Dre Fiver with the unfiltered take, and I want to hear from you. Do you ride with Stephanie White's system and trust the process? Or do you look at that footage, look at those first half numbers, look at those attendance drops and those $8 resale tickets, and say it is time to let Caitlin be Caitlin before this thing goes completely sideways? Drop your take in the comments right now, because this comment section is about to be a war zone, and I am here for every single second of it. And listen, if you made it this far, you already know what time it is. Smash that like button, share this video with somebody who needs to see it, and subscribe to Street Hoops because we are the only channel that gives you the real story, without the filter, without the corporate spin, and without the league telling us what we are and are not allowed to say. I'm Dre Fiver. Stay locked in. More drama is coming. And trust me, you do not want to miss it.